What if I told you that there might be a physical ancient relic that could prove the resurrection of Jesus Christ? And what if this mysterious artifact still exists and has been hidden in plain sight for centuries? Let's take a journey into one of the greatest mysteries in religious history. Whether you believe Jesus of Nazareth was the Christ, the long-awaited Messiah, or simply view him as a historical figure, one thing is certain: his impact on the world is undeniable. Across centuries, cultures, and continents, his life and teachings have shaped the very foundation of societies, philosophies, and spiritual thought. Virtually all respected scholars of antiquity agree on one fundamental point: Jesus truly existed. The idea that he was merely a myth has been consistently rejected by mainstream academic consensus. However, where these scholars do begin to diverge is in their interpretation of what he taught, what he believed, and most controversially, what actually happened to him. Interestingly, there are two moments from Jesus' life that are supported by an overwhelming majority of historians and scholars. First, that Jesus was baptized, and second, that he was crucified under the Roman authority. These events, corroborated by historical methods and ancient writings, stand on fairly solid ground. But here's where it gets complicated. While Christians believe that Jesus rose from the dead, most non-Christian scholars dispute this claim. They argue that the resurrection, though central to Christian faith, lacks the hard evidence needed to support it as a historical fact. But what if that hard evidence did exist? What if there was a centuries-old artifact that could change everything we thought we knew? And what if that artifact still survives to this very day? So what exactly is the Shroud of Turin? Let's find out. Hello, I'm Mikey, Dr. Berg, Marine Corps veteran and documentary filmmaker, and in this episode of Forgotten History, we'll explore one of the most controversial and captivating religious mysteries of all time. According to the Gospel of Matthew, as night fell on the day of Jesus' crucifixion, a wealthy man named Joseph of Arimathea, who was also a follower of Jesus, approached Pontius Pilate with a bold request to claim the body of the crucified Christ. Pilate granted permission, and Joseph carefully took Jesus' body, wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and laid it inside his own tomb, which had been carved from solid rock. He then sealed the tomb with a massive stone rolled across the entrance and quietly walked away. Matthew 27:57-60. That linen burial cloth, according to many believers, still exists, and it is known today as the Shroud of Turin. Preserved since 1578 in the royal chapel of the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, the shroud is no ordinary relic. According to modern measurements, the cloth is about 14 feet 3 inches long and 3 feet 7 inches wide. Faint but clearly visible on it are two sepia-toned images, one of the front and one of the back of a man laid out in death. The figure, measuring approximately 5 feet 7 inches, appears to have suffered severe trauma. There are thorn wounds on the head, flogging marks across the back, bruises on the shoulders, and bloodstains that have been confirmed to be type AB, human bloodotype, commonly found in the Middle East. Could this be the face and the body of Jesus? The historical trail of the shroud first emerges in 1354, when it appeared in the hands of a French knight named Geoffroy de Charny. By 1389, the relic was displayed publicly, attracting both pilgrims and skeptics. One local bishop condemned it as a forgery, even claiming an artist had admitted to painting it. Despite this early controversy, the cloth remained revered. In 1453, Geoffroy's granddaughter Marguerite de Charny gave it to the House of Savoy, and it was transferred to Chambéry, France, where it survived a devastating fire in 1532. Damaged by both flames and water, the shroud was nonetheless preserved and eventually relocated to Turin in 1578, where it has remained ever since. Public viewings of the shroud have been rare and often coincide with significant anniversaries or papal visits. In 1978, on the 400th anniversary of its arrival in Turin, shroud was again displayed to the public. In 1998 and 2000, Pope John Paul II arranged further viewings, calling it a mirror of the gospel. Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis would also later make pilgrimages to see the cloth, further fueling worldwide fascination. Millions of faithful believe this linen once covered the body of Jesus Christ inside the tomb. They believe the image captured on it is not a painting or accident, but a miraculous imprint of the divine. Interestingly, the shroud is made of fine linen, woven in a 3-to-1 herringbone pattern, a technique rarely used in medieval Europe. The twist of the threads actually rules out Egyptian origin and instead supports an origin in ancient Israel. Even its dimensions, when converted to cubits, align with units of measurement from biblical times, not the medieval period. The quality of the weave itself implies wealth, perhaps even noble status. And Joseph of Arimathea, the man who buried Jesus, is described in Scripture as a rich man. The details seem to match. Then, in 2002, conservationists in Italy carried out a delicate, secret restoration process. They removed the 16th century backing cloth that had been added to reinforce the shroud after the fire, preserving the original linen beneath for future study. But what do science and history really say about this mysterious cloth? And can modern analysis finally answer the question that has puzzled believers and skeptics for centuries? Previously, we explored the mysterious origins and history of the Shroud of Turin, ancient linen cloth that millions believe once wrapped the crucified body of Jesus. But beyond its compelling history lies a scientific enigma that still baffles experts to this day. In 2002, during a rare conservation effort, textile expert Mechtild Fleury-Lemberg made an astonishing discovery on the reverse side of the shroud. She identified a highly unusual stitching pattern, so rare, in fact, that it had only ever been seen in one other place, Masada, the ancient mountain fortress overlooking the Dead Sea. Masada is known as the last stronghold of Jewish resistance during the First Jewish Revolt in the 1st century AD. And it's from this exact time and place contemporary to the life of Jesus that the same unique stitching was also found. That link suggests a level of historical authenticity that's difficult to ignore. But even more mysterious than the cloth's construction is the image itself. The ghostly figure of a crucified man embedded in the shroud is its greatest mystery. Despite decades of scientific research, microscopic analysis, and repeated attempts to reproduce the image using ancient or modern techniques, no one has succeeded in replicating it, especially not at the microscopic level of the linen fibers. Here's why. The image only appears on the outermost layers of the linen threads. Not even all the way through a fiber, but just on the very surface, almost like a microscopic discoloration or pixel. That's right, there are no brush strokes, no binder, no pigment. Despite ongoing claims that the shroud is a painting, scientific analysis has consistently proven otherwise. The Shroud of Turin Research Project, STURPA, major team of scientists who studied the cloth, intensively concluded that the only traces of paint came from early replicas of the shroud. In those times, believers would press replicas against the original to sanctify them. This contact left behind tiny paint flakes, but none of the paint actually forms the image on the original cloth. The linen fibers themselves show no sign of any traditional art technique. So how was this haunting image created? Only in recent years have scientists begun to uncover a possible mechanism, a brief but extremely intense burst of radiation, likely from heat or ozone, that discolored the fibers ever so slightly enough to form the image. The discoloration penetrates to only a tiny fraction of the width of a human hair. That level of precision is unimaginable using medieval tools. Could this burst of high energy be connected to the moment of resurrection? Some have described the image as a kind of photographic negative, a divine snapshot, frozen in time, of the very instant Jesus rose from the dead. It's a stunning possibility. Anyone who has seen the actual shroud or even a high-resolution, full-scale replica will tell you something extraordinary. The image is a negative, not a positive. You have to step 6 to 8 feet away to see the full figure clearly. From up close, it all but vanishes. Think about that. What kind of forger, centuries ago, would create an image meant to be viewed from afar, especially when no one knew what a photo negative even was? Even more puzzling is the proportional accuracy of the body. Renowned artists, like Dame Isabel Picek, have praised the anatomical precision. It's too perfect for a hoax. Then there's the blood. The wounds visible on the image match the blood stains found on the cloth. But here's where things get strange. Scientific analysis has shown that the blood was on the cloth before the image appeared. Imagine writing a letter, but placing all your periods, commas, and punctuation marks before writing the words themselves. That's the level of precision a forger would have needed. And the blood supposedly over 2,000 years old is still red. Now, that's highly unusual. Normally, blood turns brown as it ages. Skeptics have tried to use this fact to argue that the shroud is a fake, but modern blood chemists offer another explanation. In people undergoing extreme stress or trauma, such as a crucifixion, chemical changes in the body cause a pigment called bilirubin to enter the bloodstream. This pigment can preserve a red coloration in dried blood. So, if a forger did this, did he somehow find a real crucifixion victim, extract blood with high bilirubin levels, and then apply it to the cloth before creating the image? That stretches belief. Still not convinced? Let's talk about the soil. Samples taken from the foot region of the shroud were analyzed using a scanning ion microprobe at the Enrico Fermi Institute in Chicago. The results were compared to samples of aragonite soil from Jerusalem. Very specific, rare composition. The graphs of the two soil samples? A nearly identical match. The evidence continues to mount, but the questions keep getting deeper. What else has science uncovered about this baffling cloth? And are there more secrets hidden in the fibers, just waiting to be revealed? As we've seen, scientific analysis of the Shroud of Turin has revealed startling connections, not only through the image itself, but also through the physical traces embedded in the cloth. Researchers have long suspected that the shroud traveled a route from the Middle East into Europe, and now we have supporting evidence. Samples pressed against the linen show traces from Jerusalem, northern Syria, Anatolia, Constantinople, and eventually Western Europe. These traces match the exact pattern of travel long hypothesized by historians and shroud researchers, beginning with the mysterious Edessa cloth, later known in Byzantine Constantinople, and eventually brought to France after the Fourth Crusade. If the shroud were simply a medieval forgery, how do we explain the non-European pollens and botanical tracism from plants that only bloom in Jerusalem during springtime? Notably, Dr. Avinom Danin, a botanist from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, identified these specific flower impressions on the shroud. He had no religious motivation to authenticate it, but his findings spoke volumes. Then there's the mystery of the poker holes, a distinctive L-shaped set of burn marks that appear in 4 different spots on the cloth. Strangely, these burns predate the first documented fire in 1532. A major breakthrough came when scholars examined an illustrated manuscript, the Hungarian Prey manuscript, dated to 1192 and kept today in Budapest. It contains an image of Jesus being buried. But it's not just any depiction it features: the same herringbone weave, the same crucified pose, and yes, even the exact poker holes seen on the shroud. This alone presents a serious challenge to those who claim the shroud is a medieval hoax. So, why then did the carbon-14 dating tests from 1988 indicate a date between 1260 and 1390? That conclusion led many to dismiss the shroud outright. Headlines across the world read, "The shroud is a fake." But the story didn't end there. Before his death, STURP scientist Raymond Rogers published a peer-reviewed paper revealing that the sample used for carbon dating had been taken from a repaired edges section woven with cotton threads, not the original linen. These cotton threads had been dyed to match the older fabric, likely added during a medieval restoration. As Rogers explained, this patch skewed the results. It's now widely believed that the carbon-14 test dated the repair, not the authentic core of the cloth. Since then, 3 independent tests using different methods of textile dating have pointed to an origin far older than the medieval era, possibly placing the shroud close to the 1st century AD. But beyond all science and skepticism, perhaps what matters most is the impact the shroud continues to have. For many, it has led to a personal transformation. To them, the shroud is more than evidence, it is confirmation that the resurrection was not just a symbol, but a historical reality. Could it be that this centuries-old linen is the silent witness to the moment Christ rose from the dead? So what do you believe? Let us know in the comments below. We genuinely want to hear your thoughts. Is the Shroud of Turin a holy relic, a miraculous sign, or simply a historical mystery that continues to defy explanation? If you found this episode of Forgotten History thought-provoking, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you have story suggestions or questions you'd like us to explore in future episodes, drop them in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and remember, sometimes the past still speaks.